November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, also marked the start of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The annual campaign, which runs until December 10th, which is Human Rights Day, is used as an organizing strategy by individuals and organizations around the world to call for the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. On this one-on-one, we take a look at one organization dedicated to helping women who are sometimes running away from just that, gender-based violence. And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and my special guest is the founder and director of Jabez House, Miss Shamelle Rice. Miss Rice, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa, and good evening to everybody out there in Barbados. Hope you're having a really good evening so far.
I hope so too. Let's jump right into it. Tell me, what is Jabez House?
So Jabez House is, I like to describe it as a haven of hope for women who find themselves in sex work and really desire to transition from the trade. And at Jabez House, we pretty much just try to provide them with access to alternative economic empowerment opportunities. So if you are here and you don't want to be, you're able to just come into our space and, access the courses we have on offer, the services we offer. So whether that's counseling, assistance with food and, just basic needs just to be able to navigate that season, we pretty much just try to make that happen for those women.
And how long ago were you started?
We started in July 2012, so still kind of young, but, getting a little bit older, but yeah, so since 2012.
And you are registered as a charity?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little more about the services that you offer to these women.
Right, sure. So since starting the work in 2012, one of the main drivers for women entering sex work in Barbados is largely to be able to take care of themselves and more so with their children. So you would find most women are mothers, and are single parents in most cases, and have been having challenges finding employment or just ways of being able to get by. And, so they find themselves there because it's like, well, my children are going to be hungry, the landlord is about to evict me, something has to happen, and they just make that decision. So with our services, we are able to provide them with training. So whether that is coming in and say learning hairdressing or nail technology or whatever, and it's helping you to use those skills to either start a business of your own or find another means of employment, then we pretty much try to do that in terms of facilitating that transition economically. Counseling is also a very big part of what we do. We found just from our research and stuff that many of the women who, yes, are in sex work, there's a lot that happens while you're there, but there's also a lot that's happened long before. And this is not to say that every single woman who has been, say, abused will invariably become a sex worker. But we have seen from our research that many women who do find themselves there have had very traumatic life experiences, have not had a lot of support growing up and different things. And some of that trauma has really just kind of made certain spaces and areas in their lives not as functional as we would love. So just being able to help the clients not only, yes, learn a practical skill, but also be able to, really go deep and work through some of those issues that they can be better women, better mothers, just better persons overall for themselves and their families is really important to us. And of course, you can't have someone coming out to your programs and stuff and they're hungry or they don't have bus fare to get there, or, so we also try to make sure that those very basic needs are also met.
You mentioned abuse, and I'm going to come back to that. Sure. But in terms of the number of women you've been able to help since 2012?
Yeah, since 2012, we work with over 500 ladies in terms of being able to provide our services. And we've been able to see many of them completely leave the trade, have their own businesses, find, just other areas to work in, etc. So it's been very rewarding, just to be able to know that through the services you're offering and just the opportunities that you're creating and providing, that women can have lives that they really truly desire.
And following on from that, it might seem like a rhetorical question, but what caused Shamelle Rice to say, let me start a charity and help sex workers?
Sure. I feel like that's always the question I get. And truthfully, I reflect a lot on my own life growing up. My mother was a young single parent. She had my three brothers, and I. And I saw her as a teenage mother at the time, struggling to be able to get by. We had many days of being hungry. I know what it is to go to sleep with a hunger headache, more often than I would like to remember. I know what it was to be the child who never got to go on the field trips at school. You know, you always wear hand-me-downs. You're just always the poor child. And I do remember as a child seeing the men come around, trying to proposition my mother that, you want a little help for the children, man, And my mother, I'm telling you, my mother's a very strong woman, right? And she would cuss out people if she had to. But I never understood it when I was really young. As I got older and I started to understand, I realized persons saw the vulnerability that she had. They saw, oh, look, this young girl with these children, she ain't really gotten a lot of help. Hey. And I think if not for persons then coming along over the years to offer that assistance to me, to my brothers, to my mom, I'm not sure what her life would have looked like. And she was, I mean, my mother, even to this day, is the strongest woman I know, is the most amazing person I know. Sometimes I tell her that, and I feel like she thinks I'm just saying it to stroke her ego. But I really sincerely believe that about her, because I've seen the resilience that she had been able to just gather. I've seen her walk through seasons. I remember she used to work at this cleaning firm, and there were nights if she had to do the night shift. We lived in a very, very, very tiny one-room house, no electricity, no running water, nothing, just our little lamps. And she would, like lock us in the house. I guess for her, she wanted to know, well, nobody can get in and they're safe. But she would lock us in. She's like, no, she would make sure we got a little tea and stuff. And she would go and then have to, be back wait for the 5 o'clock bus to be able to get home the next morning. I also saw her, my older brother, he was a terrible asthmatic. We lived in St. Philip, and he would always be having asthma attacks and stuff. And she would have to basically trudge down to the QEH with 3 of us, and have to be there all night. And then we would have to wait to get on the 5 o'clock bus to go home. And she has to go to work the morning. And of course, that over time caused her to lose some jobs, because some employers, of course, I mean, I could understand that they would need her to be there like on time and, not really missing, but it was a lot. So seeing a lot of that and seeing what she had to go through, but then seeing how persons over the years came alongside, I recognized, well, this young lady, she has some potential. She's smart, she's bright. My teachers at primary school, they were so kind to me. And I remember sharing this story in a recent video I had done, where there was this one field trip that I wanted to go on. If nothing else, I wanted to do this one field trip. Everybody was going on the submarine. And I'm really going to try not to cry when I tell this, because it just gets me every time. But everybody was going on the submarine. And yet again, another field trip where I was the only child left in the classroom. The buses were outside. Everybody was there. Everybody excited, got their bags. And I only went to school that day because I needed school meals. And I never missed school because school meals was the thing. Like, I needed to know that I had something to eat that day. And then the servers were so nice to me. They would always pack little extra cakes, and I would carry my bottle, they put in the milk, and so I am missing school and that little extra goodies, So I went to school, and everybody is just going out, and people are looking around like, wait, you want to come in? And they're like, all right, cool, and I'm there writing on the chalkboard and trying to look busy and everything. But as the room got lighter, and I realized I really was the only person that was going to be left, I started to feel like crap. I was like nothing else. The submarine. I mean, as a 10, 11-year-old child, that was a dream for me at the time. And yeah, I was the only person there. And I remember my teacher, Miss Smith, at the time. She came in, just walking through just to make sure no child was left behind and everybody had everything. And I was there, the only person in the classroom. And she looked at me and she said, Shamelle, you don't want to go on the trip? And I said, yes, mom, but my mother didn't have the money for me to go, and and all this. And she said, okay, but you really want to go, right? And of course, in my head, I'm thinking, of course I want to go, right? But I said, yes, I want to go, but I don't know. She said, all right, is there a way of getting in touch with your mother? And I'm like, well, we don't have a house phone, but I know my neighbor has a phone. We could try calling there. And she said, okay, come. She got me to, get my bags and everything. And I did. And I went downstairs. And I remember standing outside of the principal's office while she went into the secretary there, just trying to make this call. The buses were loaded. Everybody was already on the bus. And this woman refused to let the buses leave until she heard my mother. And she called. I mean, like, she was just calling. She finally got through to one of the neighbors who was able to, walk across the road a little bit, find my mother, and my mother was able to say yes, like she would love for me to go, etc. And I got to go on that trip. And just in summer, I took my daughter. I have a 4-year-old. I have 2 daughters. One is 4 and one is just under 2. And I took her on the submarine, right? And I was so excited as an adult to be able to do that for her, because while I was doing that for her, I seeing the excitement on her face, I was remembering myself as a 10, 11-year-old, and the excitement, the joy, just to be able to do this thing, So experiences like that, just seeing how people just went out of their way for me. And this one individual, I always have to talk about him, because I feel like this really cemented for me making a decision to help others. At my class 4 graduation, I emerged the valedictorian, and I had to give my speech and all of that. And at the end, one of my teachers came and she said, Shamelle, listen, there is a gentleman that I want you and your mother to meet. And I'm like, all right, again, my teachers knew of the situation, and I knew that they felt she has so much potential. She has just passed for Queen's College and everything, but I could tell that they feared, well, without the support, knowing, well, there's no school meals, there is no, she's gonna have to come from St. Philip all down to St. James. How is she gonna make this happen? I don't know how they worked it out, but they introduced my mother and I to this gentleman, Hilford Murrell. And I remember going up to him, and my teacher, Miss Brathwaite, said, this young lady, listen, she got a lot of potential, if there's any way of helping her. And, and I was like, okay, fine. And I think at that time, I didn't realize when she was saying help, what really that would have looked like. But after the graduation, he followed through. He got in touch with my mother, and basically from that day made a decision that he was going to support me my entire school life. This man bought every single uniform I needed to go into QC. My books, everything. All throughout my life there, right up to 6th form, he's the one that made sure I had money monthly to go to school. My books, everything. And even when I finished 6th form, I wanted to go to university, but again, there was no money, there was no nothing. And I remember talking to him, and he said, so Shamelle, know that you're done with school. Like, what's your plan? I said, well, I would love to go to university, but like, my mother's not having money, so I don't know. I'm just going to try to find a job. And he said, I don't understand. He said, what's the problem? I said, well, I do not have the money. Because of course, now I'm thinking, you were 18. This man has stepped up and has helped you since you were 11. Like, he literally owes me nothing. How could I then expect that he would even want to continue, at this point? And he did, all through university. Every book, everything. And never once was he ever inappropriate. He never asked a question. He never said, listen, well, no, I do this for you. Nothing. All he required of me was that I showed him my report throughout school. I would check in with him, that he could say, okay, you're, on track, you're doing well. I guess that he would know that it was really worth his investment, quote unquote. And he did that. And I mean, there are so many stories I can tell of others, but those ones really stood to me because in terms of the time that it took for someone to stay committed, I saw him do that. And I knew that without the help of my teachers, without the help of an angel like Mr. Murrell, I really do not know what my life would have looked like. And he said, if there is any way that I can help others, if there's any way that I can pay this forward, if there's any way that I could say, I am going to be, at least a source of hope for another person, especially another woman, seeing how my mother had to struggle along, knowing as a young female myself how difficult it was. I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like I was very clear from age 14, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And that's what I do, and it's rewarding. It's I enjoy doing it. And it's not like, I'm getting money, it's really just a joy of seeing people's lives transform. And I mean, for me, that has been more amazing and more rewarding than anything else.
And as you said, your mother would have been young with 4 children.
Yeah.
She was vulnerable, and
Yeah.
your story could have been different.
Definitely.
And everybody does not have that support system.
They do not. They do not. And I mean, that's why even to this day, regardless of what happens, like my mother is always the person that I will love forever. Like she is really just
You can take a moment.
I know that my mother looks at me and there are times that she's probably saying, I'm so proud of you, Shamelle.
But you are proud of her.
I am. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a break here and be back. You're watching One on One.
Everything comes at a cost. And these days, no one profits from the loss, like when a child is forced to trade school day socialization for screen time study, when a disease decides to disrupt our daily routine, and suddenly every one of us is coming undone, losing loved ones' lives and livelihoods, breath and breadwinners, families and festivals and freedoms. God, we feel like it's too much hassle to be human. We will always remember the years the earth spun quieter, but Mother Nature showed us how the simple act of standing still can wage war on an illness. So may we remember how to be our own army, how it takes cooperation for a community to build immunity, how unity can nurse us back to normalcy. Why stop at one family when we could save all?
Hello, I'm Dr. Ingrid Burrows, and I'm going to give you some tips on managing your hypertension. The first thing you should do is to decrease your salt intake. You should keep your salt intake to less than 1 gram a day. This is equivalent to about 1 teaspoon of salt every day. Another thing you should do is to ensure that you're getting enough physical activity. You should aim for 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every week of moderate intensity. For example, brisk walking, light jogging, swimming, or running. This equates to half an hour of exercise 5 days a week. You also want to increase your intake of fresh fruits and vegetables. It is advised that you eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetable every day. And the last thing you can do is monitor your blood pressure at home with a digital machine. This is very important as some patients have elevated blood pressures while in the doctor's office while having normal blood pressures at home. This is called white coat hypertension. Also, if you're taking medication for your hypertension and you notice any changes in your blood pressure, you can call your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications to suit. If your readings are too high or too low, you can inform your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications appropriately. I hope these tips have been helpful.
And welcome back. Now, Shamelle, before we went to the break, we were talking about some women not having the support system that your mother had. Most of the women that get into sex work, from what you have seen, is it a situation where they're just desperate? As you said, many of them are mothers. They have to feed and support their children. Mm-hmm. Is that the case?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And in terms of the lack of support, again, that has been seen in our research. So in 2017, Jabez House, we were able to partner with Adelphi School of Social Work in New York and Safe Spaces Barbados. And so this was a really in-depth study on the experiences of women in the sex work community in Barbados. And that really, the lack of support really emerged again as one of the things that maybe if that was there, could have changed the direction of where we see some women. So yeah, I mean, Lisa, I have personally engaged so many women, and I would be hard pressed to find two of them that said, when I grow up, I want to be a sex worker. Like, no one says that. And I know, over the years, there have been all these different movies and things, and people from way back when would talk about Pretty Woman, or just somehow think that it's probably glamorous, man, these women worthless, they just want fast money. And really, well, at least that's not the experience I have seen. Yeah. And like I said, I have engaged a lot of women personally, and that is the farthest thing from the truth. These women are out there because they feel helpless, they feel hopeless, they just want to feed their children and just be able to function and live. So, given the opportunity, they do want to take hold of it to be able to have different lives and different experiences.
Now, off camera, we were talking, and you were saying that many of these women, in terms of the ages, they're vast. Yeah, there's not one particular age group.
No, again, people have all of these beliefs and ideas and stereotypes. They think like, okay, well, only certain women will do this, or age ranges. Or I have seen girls who have been young, 16, whatever, and I've seen women who have been in their 50s. It really has nothing to do with the age. I think it really comes down to where a woman is at in her life, and how is she really just being able to get by, and what she thinks she will need to do to make it happen. And whether or not we agree with sex work, whether or not we think it's the right or the wrong thing to do, whether we think it's legitimate work, or my thing always is, if you're not offering a solution, if you're not helping, well, then you really just be quiet. Like, you are like bashing someone or just trying to be, on them, is really not helping anything. So unless you are willing to help and offer solutions, then you really don't know what is somebody's story, and you really just should just be quiet.
Many people watching this are saying, well, what does this have to do with gender-based violence? But in many instances as well, women get into the sex trade as a consequence of sometimes fleeing domestic violence.
Oh, for sure. Domestic violence is one of those things that we really need to be rid of. I mean, it's really heartbreaking that in the year 2021, that we still have to be having these conversations. But we need to be having these conversations, yeah? And the COVID-19 pandemic really has not helped at all. Matter of fact, the rates of abuse have really intensified as a result of the pandemic. So, I mean, imagine last year in Barbados, we were on lockdown and people felt as if they were going crazy. Persons who had resources and everything, people were just having a rough time. So imagine someone who really has little to no resources. You are in a place where you're vulnerable, dependent on maybe a partner or someone who no longer has a job, or if they have a job, the hours have been cut. It's, you're just at home. It's like tempers are going to fly, things are going to happen. So the reported, and I have to say reported cases, you have seen a very, very, very high increase. So imagine the unreported. And there are always incidents that go unreported. And I feel as if those unreported incidents are probably even more than those that have been reported. Persons sometimes are afraid to even go to the police or to go and try to get help, because they don't know, well, if I leave here, what's going to happen? If I leave here, and it's really like a terrible thing that we still have to be battling with this issue.
One of your clients trying to flee domestic violence and entering the sex trade, is there any one story or experience that stands out?
I can't know that. I can't think of like a one story in terms of a woman who may have been trying to escape it and found herself there. I know that many women, while they're there, do experience a lot of intimate partner abuse. And even while at work, while women are out there, those stories I can't even begin to share. But the horrors that happen while a woman is out there, that's a really a whole nother thing. But I do remember some years a client, she came to the office and she was just kind of hysterical. She really wasn't able to, I think, articulate herself well. And I'm trying to understand what were you saying? And she was brown skin, like, kind of like you, Lisa. And I said to her, let's go in the office here, because the others are here, I just want to have this privacy. And when we got in there, before I could even close the door well, this woman just started to take off her clothes, just right there, to show me. I think she just needed me to see what had happened to me. And she was black and blue, when I tell you, all over her body. Because of what she had worn when she came to the space, this shirt and everything, you could not tell. And her face looked pretty okay at the time. But you see, from the time that cloth barely went down, this woman was covered in bruises. And I mean, I sit down and think, what kind of sick person would do this to another human being? And a lot of cases, I mean, yes, there are women who may be strong or who may look strong, but a lot of times men are always physically, more overpowering than a woman. I do not understand how that is ever okay. But there are just so many cases of women who have and who still have to endure domestic violence. And for sure, during the pandemic, we did see cases where persons, it really became rough.
Just to be clear, the lady that you just gave the example of, that was while she was on the job, or that was at home?
That was really an intimate partner experience. But the on-the-job experiences have been, in some cases, even worse than that. You have women, they're are kidnapped, are raped, are gangbanged, or everything you can think of. And in a lot of cases, it never, ever reaches the authorities, because women fear being told, well, you should never be there in the first place, or, oh, well. And this is not to say there are not officers who are never concerned, because personally, I have been, doing outreach or whatever, and seeing officers come around and listen, y'all good, be safe. Hey, you know what? Look around at your surroundings, and we've seen that. And I also want to see that I know the sex crimes unit has been set up. So having worked, at some workshops with some of the personnel there, I know that at least some effort has been made. But it doesn't mean that every single person, who's a law enforcement agent, is of that mindset where they're like, okay, well, regardless of what you were doing, you have been violated and it's not good enough. So that's something I think that we need to also still work on, so that regardless of what a woman has been doing, where she's been, if violence has been perpetrated against her, it needs to be dealt with.
No, as you mentioned, the Royal Barbados Police Force does have a sex crime unit.
Yeah.
Do you ever get an instance where a woman is too scared to go and report the incident, so therefore Jabez House steps in?
Well, we've had cases where women have just said, I'm not going to the police. They really have. I feel like some people just don't think it makes sense. And especially if it's a case where while you were at work, you were assaulted, and you may be too afraid to try to report the person, or you may not even be sure of who the person is, because they may even be out working and it's a dark car, it's whatever you get in, and then, hey, things happen. In those instances, well, of course, that doesn't happen. And then the truth is, we also have some women who are non-national, and they just, they're not comfortable going to report something, because it's like, well, you here doing this day anyway, so it's no that way you get. So both Barbadian and non-nationals alike have had challenges where they felt too afraid, or they felt like they would be discriminated against if they did report it. I mean, but there are some who have been brave enough to step up, both to report their intimate partner experiences, as well as maybe things that happened while at work. And that, I mean, that's like tremendous courage right there. So I'm always all for it.
We mentioned that these women sometimes come from homes where there's abuse. However, what about the father figures? Do many of these women come from homes where their fathers were active?
Well, at least from what I've seen, I haven't seen cases where there was, real like fathers who were present and active. But I think that is even broader than just women who are from the FSW community. I feel like so many fathers just across Barbados really are not as active as they need to be, and really are not present. I myself, my father has been inactive my entire life. And there are so many persons, I have friends where it just seemed normal, like to not even know your father or for him to not even be there. So though, yes, I've seen it amongst the ladies, I just feel like it's really just a broader societal issue. Having said that, though, I am always very happy when I see men. I feel like over the years, in recent years, I feel as if I'm seeing a little bit more in terms of young men and men just trying to be more out there with their children. And that's a plus. If you're a dad and you're watching this, like, that's some good stuff, and really keep at it, because your presence really makes a difference in just how your children, how their lives turn out.
And going back to your story, because we don't want to say that they're bad fathers, but they're also bad mothers, and mothers that turn a blind eye.
Yes.
To their daughters being taken advantage of.
Oh, for sure. And that's really heartbreaking, because I again, that's one of those things that I cannot understand, how a mother would not even try to protect a daughter or try to pretend like they don't know what's going on. I can understand that if you're a mother, you have many children, you're already just struggling to survive, and there's a man who is, right now keeping a roof over your head and making sure that the children all at least have something to eat. I could see in some way, don't come at me, but I could see how a woman might say, but if I, try to address this thing, we gonna end up being homeless, or, and of course a lot of those women have their own stories and experiences too, but it's still a very, very difficult thing to grasp, that you wouldn't be there to fight for your daughter or your children, and allow abuse to continue and just act as if it's not even happening.
I know that your charity is dedicated to women. However, do you think that there's a need for us to have a deeper conversation with men in terms of the way that they can react to situations?
Yes, definitely. I feel like whatever we decide to do, if we're going to be addressing an issue like intimate partner abuse or domestic violence or just abuse in general, men have to be involved in the conversation. Like, you can't have a solution with only one gender deciding they're going to do things. There has to be consensus. There has to be a working together, an agreement. Yes, I'm with you. My husband Anderson, we're like always having conversations like this, and I think sometimes he's thinking, I'm beginning to like really get this, because something happens. I'm like, babes, do you see this thing? No, this is male privilege, and I'm always, and he's open to those conversations. And sometimes I would hear him saying stuff like, if something else happens, you say, yo, but I don't see this as a man though. But I think it's because we are always having those conversations, and because of my work, there are certain things I'm going to be, just kind of more passionate about. But that is good. So then even how he relates to our daughters, I think it is because of an increased awareness about the way, how men are positioned in society to women, etc. So we need to have those conversations. And if we're going to address abuse and intimate partner violence and all of that, it has to start really from within our households. What are we teaching our boys? Like, what ideas about manhood and, what it is or what it looks like to be a man are we just indoctrinating them with, a man doesn't just grow up as a 20-something, 30-something, 40-something year old man and just be aggressive and abusive and violent. There had to be something that happened along the way. What was this child exposed to? What behavior is this person possibly modeling? So we all have to really play our role in making sure that from the time they're like this, that we're having those conversations. And likewise, even for our girls, because I really want to set the record straight here that yes, there are women who also perpetrate violence against women and against men. But, we're just talking right now because it's during these 16 days of activism. We're focusing on this area as it relates to violence against women and girls. But I am fully aware that there are women who do have anger issues, who are aggressive, who have good men in their lives that they beat bow and do all the bad things to. So, like, I do know that. But we really have to do better as a society and begin to address those things. And if we are aware of something, then what can you do? I remember as a child seeing a couple of my neighbors, and this one neighbor in particular, her husband was easily the most abusive man I had ever come across. And it was common to hear her hollering and screaming. And I remember Sunday afternoon seeing him literally beat her all but she ran out the house. And he down behind this woman and grabbed her. She had dragged she back up the step. And and I remember one of our neighbors, this man, he went out and he was like, listen to me. Like, I had enough of this. And he was ready to go at this man. But the other neighbors, who were sadly mostly female, stopped that male neighbor from intervening. They were like, listen, try and left them, that's husband and wife. And when them done, they're going to go back together, because they had seen that this woman had remained in this relationship for years. So nobody was willing to really get involved. And the truth is, she did stay. I mean, good gosh, I'm a big hardback woman right now. And she's still with that man, even although her entire life has been blows and mistreatment and, but I feel like somebody's just turning that blind eye saying, no, but I ain't gonna get involved because how do we know that that woman will ever really escape? And if she does get her way, it's not really going to be her death. I don't ever want that blood on my hands, and even if you may not want to physically intervene, make a call. At least safety police can come. I don't know, something, but we have to, in our own little spaces, say, I am still my brother or my sister's keeper. And if you see someone being abused and ill-treated, I believe that we should speak out. We should stand up. We should say something.
Growing up, we used to hear that a man doesn't love you unless he hates you.
Oh, okay. Crazy things people said, but yeah.
And in that particular instance, and from what you've seen over the years, do you think it's a situation where these women are fearful? They're fearful and they're embarrassed.
Yes, fear for sure, embarrassed, but I think it is even deeper than that. I believe a lot of it goes down to what image I really hold of myself. Like if I see myself as someone of value, of someone of worth,
so self-esteem,
of someone, who deserves nice things and to be treated well, then even if I'm afraid, even if I feel helpless, I am going to find a way somehow, whether it's reaching out for help, something that I don't have to stay there. But if I feel like, well, the man loved me, so I guess he can beat me both, or, I deserve this. Maybe I did all I good for. Like if you really believe those things, then it's going to be harder to leave or to see that something is wrong with it. So that's why, again, we have to not only have those conversations with our boys, but our girls from young. Like, what are you telling your daughters? Are you seeing it's okay for a man to think that, this is the way you should be treated? My daughters, I'm like, every day I'm drilling in their minds how good they are, how beautiful they are. Listen, you are so awesome, girl. Listen, you could do anything. Like, last time my daughter, my 4-year-old, she's like, Mommy, I want you to come and lay down with me. And I was like, jeez, all right, Bubba. I said, so tired. I just put down your sister, but all right, fine. And she's like, I just want to cuddle up. And she's, we're hugging up. And she said to me, Mommy, I was thinking that I wanted to draw a sunflower, but I don't know if I'm as good to draw that sunflower. And then I was thinking, and she's like thinking of all these things she would like to do. But she's like, I don't think I'm strong enough yet to lift the thing outside, But tomorrow, and I said to her, I said, listen, Bubba, I said, you can do anything. As a matter of fact, right? If you want it bad enough, you're going to make it happen. I said, you may not get it perfect on the first time, but you just got to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. I said, and girl, you're going to be amazed at how well you, and I'm telling her all this. And she's like, yeah, Mommy. Yeah, I could feel like, she getting this energy, like, yeah, Mommy, here gassing me up. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to gas up our girls. It's like, listen, boo, you need to know yourself. You are amazing. You are all of that in a bag of chips and more, so that they do not feel it's okay to settle. Whether my father was present or not, whether this has been my experience, whatever, I know who I am because I'm exposed to this. And even if it's not your parent, if there's a young girl watching this is what you need to do. Find someone then that you can probably align yourself with, that you can be mentored by, that you can, there are people, again, as I grew along, that I just attached myself to, because I wanted to see something else. And, they would tell me different things like, but Shamelle, listen, your life thing will always be like this. No, Shamelle, you could be. So I think all of those things, because it began to cement certain ideas in my mind and create certain paradigms that I didn't feel as if I had to sell. I didn't feel like well, you know what, you know, you're gonna always just have to struggle and barely make it in life, and just, like, no, I deserve good things. You know, you're watching, you deserve to have a beautiful life as well.
Do you think that that's missing in terms of women mentoring young girls?
Oh.
As opposed to people saying, as you said,
Mhm.
it's not my business, I'm not
Mhm.
getting involved.
Yeah. And I think that our society has really evolved in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, everything is so much busier.
Yeah.
Right? So yes, years ago you may have had a lot more women staying at home, taking care of children, and, you know, not everybody out in the bubble, like, you know, and that's right now how it is. So I don't think we can do a lot about it. The pace is different. Our lifestyles are different. It doesn't mean you have to commit 10 hours and every week. It could just be something little. We find time every day to go on Instagram and all kind of thing. If there's a young lady that you see value in her, just get her number, carve out a few minutes, have a little 5-minute video call, send a little message daily, you know, and maybe once a month to say, listen, let's go meet up in the park. You know, I want to just hang out. And it doesn't have to be anything big. We don't need to have a whole bunch of money and we don't have to be all of those things. We just have to be intentional about investing in somebody. Because you just never know what your time, what you pouring into that person, what that will mean for how their lives turned out. I am sure my teachers at school and Mr. Merle and people like would never have known even that, you know, this is how my life would be now, but they were willing to take a chance. They were willing to make the effort and just, and that's what we need. That's what we need. We need to have persons who are willing to say, you know what, I may not have a lot, but what I have, I'm going to come alongside you with. You know, I may not have a lot of time or whatever, but this is what we're going to do because I want you to grow and to bloom and just to be amazing, you know, because that's what you're created for.
Okay, so we'll take another break here. You're watching One on One.
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering, Lord. What about clean food? Make sure you got some stock up in the room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
Hi, I'm Dr. Adana Grandison, and I'm here to give you a few tips on how to accurately and safely take your blood pressure readings at home. Before taking your measurement, sit in a calm, warm environment. Don't perform any exercise in the preceding 1 hour. No coffee, food, smoking, or even sinus medication in the preceding hour to taking that blood pressure reading. Empty your bladder and bowel. Most readings that are taken at home should be below or at 135 on 85 millimeters of mercury for uncomplicated hypertension. Lower home blood pressure targets might be advisable in persons who have the following conditions: diabetes, chronic renal disease, or coronary heart disease. If several readings are above 140 on 90 millimeters of mercury, make an appointment with your physician immediately. Ensure to take your readings at the same time every day. We advise 2 readings in the morning and 2 readings in the evening, initially to profile yourself, taken 1 to 2 minutes apart. However, once you have established a baseline, you can choose a time suitable to your schedule where you can monitor your blood pressure readings.
And welcome back. Now, before we went to the break, we were speaking, and in terms of it being a cycle that you want to break, do you find that some of your clients, their mothers or other relatives, were in the profession as well?
I've seen some of those cases, but I think just overall, like whatever you may be exposed to, like you can easily just fall into. So, um, it's not to say that just because this is how your mother's life was, this is how yours will be. I just feel like persons just need to have access to opportunities and a support system, and that can really make the difference in what their lives would look like.
And in many instances, these women are still very much stigmatized.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like a man could be about the place, joking down a million and one women, and it's like, yeah, they somehow it's macho, it's okay. You hear about a woman who was around the place of men, and she worthless, she's this, she's that. So furthermore, a woman who is doing it and getting money from it, like selling her body, as people say. There's definitely still a lot of stigma around that. We've had instances where women were able to get jobs, and maybe the employer, somebody mentioned, well, this person used to do this, and then have that employer proposition them or be inappropriate, or
Really?
I mean, like crazy things. It's like people sometimes just see, well, if that's what we was doing, well then hey, you aren't, or you don't deserve to be here. I remember a few years back we were also trying to partner with some businesses in terms of providing internships or even like job opportunities for some of the women. And this one business, very big business on island, they were like, well, it's really good what y'all are doing, but I don't think that we would want persons like that to work here, And so I've had persons who have been very like, yeah, sure, as if somehow it's like, you've done this, there's no way of changing, or there's no recovery, or you're going to come and somehow infect others, or like, so there is some of that. I mean, I would say though, over the years, we also have had a lot of persons be very supportive of the work, and companies who have said, listen, if there's any way that we can offer assistance, like we want to, provide work openings that, we could make sure clients have jobs, and that has been fantastic. So anyone watching, if you ever want to, work alongside us in that area, please reach out. But those who have in the past, I really want to say thank you. I like to focus on what good has happened, and not just say, well, those people told us no, they weren't about it, but also just look at those who have said, I'm willing to come alongside a woman. I'm willing to help to see this woman empowered, that her life can be transformed.
And you have had success stories in terms of women transitioning completely away from the sex work.
Yes, man. Yes, Lisa. Like, I mean, there's so many. I don't even know which one to share, right? But there's so many. And every time I think about it, and if I think about a woman who, meeting her on the corner or meeting her somewhere and then looking at her life. No, I have clients who have their own nail salons, their own hair things. Actually, my toes, well, just before then, is one of my own clients who I went to get my nails done from her. And it wasn't free. Like, I pay you the same way, because right now you're in a different space. You are, you are really like your own boss with this job. I remember about 3-4 years back, one client had come a day with a brochure, and she's like, Mel, listen, we got this course I really want to do, and I was like, what's the course? And she showed me the brochure, and it was this nursing auxiliary course. And at the time, we don't offer, and even though we don't offer something like that, ours is a very practical, like hands-on skills kind of thing. And I said to her, well, do you know how much it's for? Do you know when it's starting? I see the brochure, but I need some more information, and we can see what's possible. In less than an hour of her showing that brochure, someone from a nursing school sent an email to say, I've been following this work, and I want to provide a full scholarship to one of your ladies if you have anyone. And I remember looking at Raquel, who works at the office. I was like, Raquel, you know what it's mean? Like, well, I started to freak out, because I knew it had to be for this young lady. And she plugged right in, cranked it for a year. And this is now about 2 years that she has been doing. She's a nursing auxiliary. I mean, her life is so different now,
turnaround.
right? Because of that opportunity, because of someone saying, hey, I'm willing to do this. And like there are just so many other stories that I can share, but it's really, really heartwarming when you can see a woman, all she needed was that opportunity, and her life really is very different. So those successes make it worth it, make it worth it to keep going and to keep just making sure that we can meet our programs and our services possible.
So Corporate Barbados is watching. How do we get in contact?
Yes, listen, call me. But no, persons can email Jabez House, Jabez House @ymail.com. You can also call 256-4615. If you don't remember any of that, we're all on Facebook, Instagram. We have a website. So just do a quick Google search of Jabez House Barbados. That is Jabez, and you'll find all of our details there. If you want to get involved, if you want to come alongside us and work to provide these opportunities for ladies.
And I know people might be saying, well, I've never seen this place, but your location is actually private.
Yes. So again, going back to the whole thing about stigma and discrimination, we really don't want it to be the place where people say, oh, that's where let's go. No. So our location is private. If you're on our page, you will see, because we're always posting so people know it's a real place with real women. You won't see their faces, but you would see them while they're in class and doing things, and that this is legit. Yeah.
If you had one wish for your charity and for these women, what would it be?
Oh, Lisa, why didn't you tell me that question? I could prep it. I don't even know. That's such a one wish, man. I think, if nothing else, I really would wish that every woman that came into our doors, that her life was able to be completely transformed. For some persons, it takes longer. The journey is longer than others. But if there was a way that as women came in, we had all of the resources, everything that we needed, and she also came in a place really fully ready to to work through everything and to have her life different, that would be it. Like, it would be like a wand almost, and go, and you could just see their lives just beautiful. Because looking at the successes we've had, the joy that comes out of that, I would want that for every single woman who made it to Jabez House.
Shamelle, it has been an eye-opening conversation. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
As much as you have. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That was Miss Shamelle Rice, the founder and director of Jabez House. I am Lisa Lord, and this was One on One.